to some of those shadow company pussies in Saigon in about '69.
Think you know Lethal Weapon? Think again. Behind the bullets and one-liners lies a darker script, unexpected casting, and rock legends on the soundtrack. From near tragedy to franchise gold, these 13 mind-blowing facts will make you see the film in a whole new way. Buckle up. This is Lethal Weapon like you've never seen it before. And just before we dive in, I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers as a small channel. If you'd like to help me keep digging, hit that subscribe button. It truly means a lot. Here are 13 mind-blowing facts you didn't know about Lethal Weapon. 1. The script was darker than the final film. When Shane Black first penned Lethal Weapon, it wasn't the semi-comedic buddy cop film that audiences know today. His original script was far grittier, darker, and filled with a nihilistic tone that bordered on tragic. Martin Riggs was depicted as a deeply disturbed, borderline suicidal man, far more intense than Mel Gibson's eventual portrayal. The climax involved a helicopter shootout and a grim fate for some of the characters. Director Richard Donner and producer Joel Silver saw potential in Black's script, but decided to revise the tone to appeal to a broader audience. They brought in humor, softened some of the violence, and made Riggs more sympathetic without eliminating his emotional depth. This rebalancing between action, drama, and comedy ultimately gave the film its unique identity and enduring appeal. Shane Black later said he was surprised but pleased by how the final version struck a chord with so many viewers. 2. Mel Gibson was nearly passed over. Mel Gibson is now synonymous with the character of Martin Riggs, but he was far from the only actor considered for the role. In fact, producers initially had their eyes on other big names, including Bruce Willis, Patrick Swayze, and even Christopher Reeve. At the time, Gibson was mostly known for his work in Australian films and his breakout performance in Mad Max. There was concern among some studio executives about his suitability for a complex American cop role. However, when Gibson auditioned and had a chemistry test with Danny Glover, the filmmakers saw something electric. His intense energy, raw emotion, and ability to balance fragility with rage made him the perfect Riggs. Once he secured the part, Gibson fully committed, immersing himself in the character's pain and volatility. His casting proved to be a pivotal decision, helping elevate Lethal Weapon from a good film to a genre-defining classic. 3. Danny Glover was only 40. Danny Glover's portrayal of the world-weary Roger Murtaugh gave birth to one of cinema's most iconic catchphrases, "I'm too old for this, Saint." Ironically, Glover was only 40 years old when he filmed Lethal Weapon, hardly the age where retirement is imminent. In fact, Mel Gibson was just 9 years younger at the time, making the age difference between the characters seem more exaggerated than it really was. The line was so memorable and fitting for Murtaugh's personality that it became a staple of the series, repeated in every sequel. The filmmakers intentionally wanted to contrast Glover's cautious, family man persona with Gibson's impulsive, loose cannon Riggs. Glover's grounded, methodical performance gave the film emotional stability and a sense of realism, creating a perfect foil for Gibson's chaos. His character's sense of weariness, though played for laughs, also added a layer of heart that made Lethal Weapon more than just another action flick. 4. Shane Black was only 23. When he wrote it, Shane Black was just 23 years old when he sold the screenplay for Lethal Weapon, making him one of the youngest screenwriters ever to make a major Hollywood splash. Fresh out of UCLA's film program, Black crafted a script that blended intense action with emotionally resonant characters, something rarely seen in action films of that era. He drew inspiration from classic noir novels and detective stories, injecting Lethal Weapon with sharp dialogue, a layered plot, and psychologically complex characters. The studio was so impressed by the screenplay that it sparked a bidding war, ultimately selling for $250,000, a record-breaking sum for a spec script at the time. Black's success not only launched his career, but also revolutionized Hollywood's perception of what an action movie could be. He would later become one of the most sought-after screenwriters in the industry, with his style influencing a generation of filmmakers. 5. Eric Clapton scored the film. One of the most surprising elements of Lethal Weapon is its soundtrack, which features the legendary Eric Clapton on guitar. Known globally as a rock and blues icon, Clapton collaborated with composer Michael Kamen and jazz saxophonist David Sanborn to create a musical score that was as emotionally layered as the film itself. Each main character had a distinct musical theme. Riggs was represented by Clapton's blues guitar, Murtaugh by Sanborn's smooth saxophone, and the action by Kamen's dramatic orchestration. This trio brought a unique sonic identity to the film, moving it beyond standard action fare. Clapton's involvement lent the film a soulful, introspective quality, particularly in Riggs' more vulnerable moments. The score stood out in a genre typically dominated by synthesizers and generic orchestral punches, giving Lethal Weapon a signature mood that subtly enhanced its emotional and psychological depth. Sixth, Riggs was nearly suicidal. On screen, one of the boldest creative decisions in Lethal Weapon was making Martin Riggs a man on the edge of suicide. Early scenes show him isolated in a trailer, grieving the death of his wife, and even putting a gun in his mouth. These moments weren't added for shock value. They were Shane Black's way of grounding the character in emotional trauma. This kind of a psychological complexity was rare in 1980s action films, which often relied more on bravado than vulnerability. Mel Gibson delivered a performance that was both intense and heartbreakingly raw, particularly in the scene where Murtaugh stops Riggs from shooting himself. Director Richard Donner wanted to explore the idea that Riggs wasn't just reckless, he was as actively self-destructive. This emotional groundwork helped Lethal Weapon stand out and connect with audiences, turning what could have been a one-dimensional character into one of the most memorable in action cinema history. 7. Real LAPD SWAT helped train the actors. To add authenticity to the film's action sequences, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover underwent training with actual LAPD SWAT officers. The goal was to ensure their characters moved and handled weapons like real law enforcement professionals. The training covered firearm handling, tactical movement, and even communication protocols used in high-stakes situations. This groundwork paid off on screen, as many viewers noticed the precision and believability in their handling of action scenes. Gibson, in particular, took the training seriously, studying techniques that helped him embody Riggs's unpredictability while maintaining realism. The actors' newfound knowledge influenced not only their physicality, but also their mindset, helping them approach each scene with the seriousness of professionals dealing with life and death situations. The result was a film that felt grounded, even amid explosions and over-the-top stunts, setting a new standard for action realism that many films would follow. 8. The film launched the buddy cop boom. While there had been cop duos before, Lethal Weapon effectively created the modern buddy cop template that dominated action cinema in the late 80s and 90s. The combination of contrasting personalities, Riggs as the wild, emotionally tormented loose cannon, and Murtaugh as the steady, family-oriented veteran, struck a chord with audiences and studios alike. The film balanced action, humor, and genuine emotional stakes in a way that was both fresh and compelling. Its success showed that action movies could have heart without sacrificing thrills. The chemistry between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover was central to this formula and would inspire countless imitators, from Tango and Cash to Rush Hour. Studios scrambled to replicate the dynamic, pairing unlikely partners in increasingly extravagant scenarios. But few matched the raw intensity and emotional nuance of Lethal Weapon, which became the gold standard for the genre it helped redefine. 9. There's a longer director's cut. While the theatrical version of Lethal Weapon runs a tight and thrilling 110 minutes, fans discovered an even grittier version when the director's cut was released years later. This extended cut includes several scenes that delve deeper into Riggs' character and add more intensity to the story. Notably, it opens with Riggs taking out a sniper terrorizing a playground, an action scene that underscores his lethal efficiency but also his emotional detachment. Another deleted sequence shows Riggs intervening in a drug deal in a dark alley, brutally taking down the criminals with little concern for his own safety. These scenes didn't make the theatrical release due to pacing concerns and a desire to keep the tone lighter. However, they offer a richer look into Riggs' instability and recklessness. The director's cut has since become a favorite among fans who want to see the darker, more complex version of the character and story. The famous line was improvised. Danny Glover's iconic line, "I'm too old for this, Charlotte" wasn't in Shane Black's original script. It was improvised during shooting and instantly became legendary. The line perfectly captured the essence of Roger Murtaugh, a man nearing retirement who suddenly finds himself partnered with an unhinged cop and thrown into high-octane, often deadly situations. Glover delivered the line so naturally that it stuck, and the filmmakers immediately recognized its goldmine potential. It became a recurring catchphrase in the Lethal Weapon series, appearing in every sequel and even in promotional materials. Beyond its humor, the line reinforced Murtaugh's world-weariness and grounded demeanor, which balanced out Riggs's chaotic energy. Audiences latched onto it as a relatable expression of exhaustion, and it has since transcended the film to become part of pop culture lexicon. Glover himself has acknowledged the phrase as both a gift and a defining feature of his career. 11. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover had instant chemistry. One of the most important ingredients in Lethal Weapon's success was the undeniable chemistry between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. The producers held several screen tests with potential pairings, but the moment Gibson and Glover shared a scene, it became clear they had something special. Despite their vastly different personalities and backgrounds, the actors found common ground through humor, trust, and a mutual respect for their characters. Their on-screen dynamic felt authentic, full of friction, camaraderie, and eventually deep friendship. This rapport elevated the film beyond a standard action movie, giving it heart and resonance. Director Richard Donner often allowed the two actors to improvise during scenes, trusting their instincts and letting their chemistry guide the tone. As a result, many of the film's most memorable moments feel spontaneous and natural. Their bond would only grow stronger in the sequels, turning Riggs and Murtaugh into one of cinema's most beloved duos. 12. Riggs's martial arts are real. Martin Riggs' fighting style in Lethal Weapon wasn't Hollywood fantasy. It was grounded in real martial arts. To prepare for his intense action scenes, Mel Gibson trained in several disciplines, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, capoeira, and various forms of kickboxing. The filmmakers wanted Riggs to be not just a good shot, but a highly trained combatant capable of disarming and neutralizing enemies with lethal efficiency. This decision was also rooted in character development. Riggs was ex-military, and his hand-to-hand combat proficiency reflected that background. The final fight scene with Mr. Joshua, Gary Busey, was choreographed with an emphasis on authenticity, incorporating actual grappling and striking techniques. Unlike the overly stylized brawls common in 1980s action films, Riggs's fights had a raw, unpredictable energy that made them more intense and believable. His fighting ability became one of the defining aspects of the character, setting a new bar for physical realism in action movie choreography. 13. It was a surprise box office smash when Lethal Weapon was released in March 1987. Expectations were modest. While it had a solid cast and an intriguing script, it wasn't viewed as a guaranteed hit. Yet, it quickly exceeded all predictions, earning over $120 million worldwide on a relatively modest budget of $15 million. Its mix of explosive action, dark humor, and emotional depth resonated with the audiences across demographics. Critics also praised the film for its character development and genre-defying approach to action filmmaking. Word of mouth spread rapidly, and the film became one of the most talked-about movies of the year. It stayed in theaters for months, proving that audiences were hungry for more than just mindless action. They wanted compelling characters and meaningful relationships too. The unexpected commercial success of Lethal Weapon didn't just launch a franchise, it reshaped the action genre and secured a permanent place in pop culture history. Lethal Weapon wasn't just action, it changed the game. From unscripted lines to real-life training, this film rewrote the rules. If your mind's blown, hit like, subscribe for more film deep dives, and drop your favorite fact in the comments. Thanks for watching, and remember, you're never too old for this.
Can't you see this guy's crazy?
Can't you see I don't give a shit?
You think you know First Blood, The Knife, The Jungle, The Stare, but behind all that muscle and myth, there's a secret. The original cut of this movie was over 3.5 hours long, and Sylvester Stallone wanted to destroy it, not tweak it, not edit it, burn it, bury it, Forget it. He called it unwatchable, even feared it would end his career. So he offered to buy the film back just to make sure it never saw the light of day. What you watched in theaters was a salvaged masterpiece, trimmed down from a cinematic disaster into one of the tightest, most enduring survival thrillers ever made. Love your movies with a side of madness? Subscribe for more explosive deep dives, hidden histories, and facts too weird for the commentary track. New videos every week that'll change the way you watch your favorite films forever. Here are 15 mind-blowing facts you didn't know about Rambo: First Blood. 1. The 3.5-hour cut Stallone tried to kill. Imagine a version of First Blood so bloated, so awkward that Sylvester Stallone felt physically sick watching it. That was the original 210-minute cut. He pleaded to buy it back just to burn the negatives. It was that bad, he later confessed. Fortunately, instead of killing the film, he went to work. Stallone himself helped trim it down to a 93-minute beast, a no-fat thriller that races like a cold mountain wind. The final version didn't just save his career, it made it. But somewhere, in a vault, that lost version lingers. An alternate Rambo, haunted by pacing, drowning in dialogue, just waiting to be rediscovered, or forever left in the dark. 2. That jacket, found rotting in the woods. Rambo's signature jacket isn't just worn, it's decaying, waterlogged, crusted with mildew, and that's because it's real. Production found it abandoned in the British Columbia woods and handed it to Stallone to wear during the survival scenes. No costume department magic, just mold and luck. It was so fitting, so disturbingly authentic that Sly kept it after the shoot. That shredded canvas became a kind of second skin, reflecting the wild, feral energy of a man on the brink. No superhero spandex, just a soggy relic from the woods wrapped around a veteran with nothing left but instinct and trauma. The jacket didn't just survive the film, it lived it. 3. Real punches, real broken nose. That moment when Rambo breaks out of the jail, that's not choreography, that's chaos. During the take, Stallone accidentally broke stuntman Alf Humphrey's nose for real. The scream? Genuine. The blood? Absolutely not fake. They kept it all. It's a brutal slice of accidental cinema, where pain leaks through the celluloid, and no one called cut. Stallone, method to a fault, insisted on filming full contact scenes, and in this one, the line between performance and punishment blurred. It added a layer of intensity no sound mix could fake. Rambo was a man who couldn't stop fighting, and on that day, neither could Stallone. 4. One body, infinite consequences. Despite the explosions, chases, and barrages of bullets, only one person dies in First Blood. Just one. Deputy Galt, who falls from a helicopter. That's it. No gun massacre, no final kill count montage. And yet, the film feels soaked in death. It's because the violence is psychological, claustrophobic, personal. The film doesn't need bodies to haunt you. It needs grief, PTSD, and the sound of a man breaking in the forest. The sequels escalated the carnage, but First Blood was never about body count. It was about what happens to a soldier when the war doesn't end. One death, infinite echoes. 5. Stallone rewrote Rambo with veterans in mind. When Stallone read the original script, he saw something hollow. An action movie without a soul. So he sat with Vietnam veterans, listened to their stories, their grief, their rage. Then he rewrote Rambo, not as a killing machine, but as a broken man wandering through a country that wanted to forget him. Stallone gave him depth, guilt, flashbacks, silence. He even changed dialogue to reflect the emotional truth of post-war trauma. This wasn't an anti-hero. It was a man gasping for dignity in a world that had none to spare. The action stayed, but the emotion, that was Stallone's rewrite. That was Rambo's real war. 6. The only Rambo film without an AK-47. You know Rambo as the ultimate gun myth, the bandoliered warrior wading through jungle fire with an AK-47 like it's an extension of his fury. But First Blood, no AKs, not one. That iconic weapon doesn't show up until the sequels when the franchise leans fully into bullet-storm spectacle. The absence is deliberate. First Blood isn't about domination. It's about desperation. Rambo doesn't go looking for weapons. He scavenges, he improvises. His tools are found, not flaunted. It's a survivalist's kit, not an arsenal. The moment he gets an M60 in the climax, it feels seismic, earned, explosive. The AKs come later, when Rambo becomes legend. But in 1982, he was still a ghost in the trees. 7. 47 on a gun stolen, on set and never found. While filming in the forests of British Columbia, something surreal happened. 47 real firearms vanished from the production site. Just gone. M16s, M60s, and semi-automatics intended for props, lifted like souvenirs from a war zone. Canadian authorities were baffled. Only 15 were recovered, the rest still missing. Rumor says some were used in real crimes. After that, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police stationed guards around the set. Picture that, a fake war zone needing real soldiers to protect it. The irony is thick. First Blood is about a vet who can't escape war, and now the production couldn't either. Even behind the scenes, the weapons kept slipping out of control. 8. Stallone's rib fracture wasn't in the script. When Rambo jumps off a cliff, crashing through pine trees into the underbrush. That's not a stunt double, that's Stallone. And the moment he hits the ground, he broke 2 ribs, filming paused. They gave him painkillers. Then he got back up and did more takes. It was classic Sly. All in, no shortcuts, bleeding for the role. That cliffside scene is one of the film's most brutal, and knowing the injury was real adds a jagged authenticity. But it didn't stop there. He also gashed his arm badly enough that the sewing it up scene used a real cut covered with prosthetics. Rambo wasn't acting tough, he was surviving. So, war Stallone. 9. They thought it would ruin his career. After the disastrous first cut, Stallone sat in silence. The movie was too long, too weird, too dark. He turned to his agent and said, "This will end me." It wasn't paranoia, it was panic. This was post-Rocky III. Sly was a household name, and First Blood felt like career suicide. He wanted to vanish the film, hide the embarrassment, but instead of fleeing, he fought, recut, rebuilt, reshaped the film from a bloated tragedy to a tightly wound thriller. Stallone didn't just survive First Blood, he reinvented himself through it. Every hero arc starts with fear. His started in an editing room, staring at the footage he thought would bury him. 10. He kept the jacket and everything it meant. That moldy green jacket Rambo wraps himself in wasn't just a costume, it became a symbol. Stallone found himself so emotionally connected to it by the end of filming, he took it home, not as memorabilia, as a reminder of what it felt like to be hunted, to be hollow, to run barefoot through hostile woods and cry in tunnels. That jacket aged with the movie, as battered as Rambo's psyche. Stallone kept it in his personal collection years before memorabilia became a business. For him, it wasn't just fabric, it was character, consequence, cold nights, and quieter pain. You don't hang that in a museum, you bury it in your closet and remember. 11th, test audiences rejected. Rambo's death. In the original ending, true to David Morrell's novel, Rambo dies, shot by Troutman. It's not heroic, it's not redemptive, it's just final. Stallone filmed it, bleeding, crying, whispering for release. But when test audiences watched it, they revolted. It was too bleak, too raw, too real. They needed hope. So the studio reshot the ending where Rambo surrenders. And just like that, a franchise was born. Stallone later admitted the death felt right on the page, but wrong on screen. The new ending transformed him from a tragic warning into a mythic survivor. The man who could walk out of anything, even his own grave. 12. Sheriff Teasel's hidden war wound. In the novel, Sheriff Teasel isn't just a small-town bully. He's a Korean War veteran, drowning in bitterness. He sees Rambo's Vietnam accolades and seethes. Teasel fought his war, but no one made movies about it. The book turns their clash into a war between wars. The film trims that detail, but you can still feel it. The tension in Brian Dennehy's eyes, the chip on his shoulder, the way he sneers at Rambo's silence. It's the resentment of a man erased by time, trying to claw back relevance. Teasel doesn't hate Rambo because he's dangerous. He hates him because he's remembered. 13. Kirk Douglas quit over the ending. Kirk Douglas was cast as Colonel Troutman. Not just cast, it billed first. He flew in, read the final script, and found the rewritten ending. Rambo lives. Douglas hated it. He insisted they kill Rambo. Stallone said no. Douglas walked, just hours before filming. Enter Richard Crenna. No prep, no costume fittings, just thrown into the fire. And yet, he nailed it. Calm, commanding, mourning his soldier without ever saying it. Crenna gave Troutman warmth and gravity, something Douglas might have buried in rage. Ironically, it was Douglas's exit that gave First Blood its soul. Sometimes the role you lose is the one that saves the story. 14. Rambo was a Cold War Trojan horse. First Blood wasn't supposed to be shown in China. Hollywood blockbusters were still barred. But in 1985, the Chinese government made a surprise exception. Why? Because they saw it not as American propaganda, but as American critique. A story about a veteran betrayed by his own system. That aligned, in a strange twist, with anti-Western messaging. So First Blood became the first major US action film screened in China, booting open the doors for the global blockbuster era. It played to sold-out crowds who cheered not just the action, but the message. Empires forget their soldiers. All of them. 15. The name, John, wasn't in the book. In David Morrell's original novel, Rambo has no first name, he's just Rambo, singular, iconic. But for the film, they added one, John, not for decoration, for meaning. It's a reference to When Johnny Comes Marching Home, a Civil War anthem soaked in post-battle mourning. Naming him John made him universal, a stand-in for every soldier who came home to silence, judgment, or worse, indifference. John Rambo wasn't just one man anymore. He was every man left behind. That name gave the film its pulse, gave him a heart, gave us someone to remember even after the blood stopped. You've seen the explosions, the cliff dives, the bullet belts, but now you've walked through the shadows behind them. A 3-hour disaster nearly buried. Real blood spilled in fake fights. Cold jackets, broken ribs, and the death that never aired. First Blood isn't just a movie, it's a wound stitched together by instinct, regret, and film stock. Rambo never asked for a war, and neither did Stallone, but both walked into the woods and came out legends. Next time you see that flare burst in the trees, remember, behind the myth was a man, and behind that man, 15 strange truths the world almost never saw. So hit subscribe and keep watching the movies you thought you knew, because out here, nothing is what it seems.